Hello everyone, I'm Ted Scritchfield from Fresno, California, and I'm here to present to you about the 100 Years' War and how it influenced music. So, let's get started. The 100 Years' War had many influences on music. Most of these influences stemmed from the infiltration of England into France. This consequence of the war, that is, England conquering and populating France, brought with it a secularization and other influences which sparked the creativity of many composers into new areas of music, which in turn influenced the historical aspects of music even to today. The 100 Years' War began in 1337 and continued on to 1453, bridging the time periods of the medieval and the Renaissance. Obviously, it was quite a bit longer than 100 years. So, there were two nation-states, and they involved England and France. According to Dictionary.com, 2011, nation-states are, quote, a sovereign state inhabited by a relatively homogeneous group of people who share a feeling of common nationality, end quote. Now, England still had some possessions in France, and France tried to take these possessions from England. So, England was pretty furious and stuff. So, finally, the war broke out after the French throne was left without a male heir after the king, Charles VII, died. Fisher, 1994, says, quote, the English king, Edward III, whose mother was the sister of 3 previous French kings, claimed to be the rightful heir of the French throne, end quote. Most of the battles happened intermittently, usually just like 1 or 2 years apart, but one gap lasted as long as 43 years. In the course of the 100 Years' War, the ideals of the medieval age were peace, trade, and the stability of the church, and they just fell apart. Art, music, and literature moved on to more secular themes. The 100 Years' War devastated the economy of France, which had been the artistic center of Europe for centuries. English conquerors came into France after battles that were won, and brought an English population which, of course, included their culture. So, master musicians gravitated toward Burgundy and Flanders, 2 English territories in France, and began to experiment with new styles in music such as rhythm, meter, harmony, and counterpoint. This new secular music concentrated on ballads of feats, exploits, love songs, and things people would be familiar with in that time. Music was growing rapidly during the 100 Years' War, with inventions like the printing press and movable type in 1439. Music was so much easier to copy and was faster to distribute. Many composers started to mark their works so that people knew who wrote it, though not all did. Guillaume was the first of these to do so. Polyphonic music was growing quickly also, partly because of the invention of the printing press. More composers were experimenting with different polyphonic styles, writing many new complex pieces of music no one had ever heard before. Some of these pieces were copied into a book called the Scarchilupi Codex. I hope I got that right. They became very well known for these styles. The monophonic chant, already harmonized with the simple organum, was becoming altered, fragmented, and hidden beneath secular tunes. The lyrics of love poems were being sung above sacred texts, or sacred texts were even being placed within familiar secular melodies. It was not only polyphony that offended the medieval ears, but the concept of secular music merging with the sacred and even making its way into the liturgy. I'm going to share about some composers of this time, and I have listening examples for each. So I'll start off with Philippe de Vitry, a French composer. He was most likely the creator of the Ars Nova Teatris. He's also credited with discovering the earliest form of isorhythms. Nancy is covering de Vitry, and I don't want to overlap with her presentation. And Isaac, I'm going to steal your YouTube link magic. Sorry. So, go ahead and look at this link. Okay, John Dunstable was the most respected English composer of the first half of the 15th century. Using mostly thirds and sixths, he composed over 50 masses, isorhythmic motets, and liturgical texts. His songs were copied many times and spread widely throughout the continent. Alright, now go to this one. Okay, Francesco Landini, an Italian musician, was the most prominent composer of the Trecento, or that's basically like the Ars Nova in Italy. Nearly all of his works were secular, and a lot of them were preserved in the Squarcialupi Codex. And here that one is. Alright. Guillaume Dufay wrote over 200 different songs, using almost every type of musical style at that time. He was one of the last major composers to use isorhythms. Alright, go check out this one. Alright, finally, Gilles Binchois was regarded as the finest melodist of the 15th century, of the early 15th century. His music was also known for being very simple to understand and memorize, but yet beautiful and very complex. Alright, here is the last magic box. Okay, quote, "Meanwhile, Italy, which had become wealthy throughout its position as a trade route to the east, was transformed by an influx of Greco-Roman Christian scholars in 1453, fleeing from the conquest of Constantinople by the Ottoman Turks. Those scholars caused the Renaissance, or reawakening. As Italy awoke, it turned toward composers of the Burgundian Flemish world for the best in music, and created the ultramontane phenomenon, a wave of composers from the other side of the mountains coming to Italy." End quote. We can see that the 100 Years' War has not just influenced music in a huge way, but its influence also trickled down to a major element within the Italian Renaissance. The war played a big role in music, from composers simply writing about the war to composers moving with the conquerors to France and affecting the French culture with their English and more secular musical styles. That is the end of my presentation. I'm sorry, I know you wanted me to continue on longer and fill your brains with even more information, but I don't have time. So, thanks for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. See you guys later.